Hello, CIPS listeners, and thank you for tuning in to listen to the podcast. Today, we're lucky enough to have secured some time with a lady called Emma, who is going to talk to us this morning about supply chain management. So firstly, thanks very much, Emma. I know you're very busy. Really appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time. Would you be able to just give the listeners a brief overview of yourself and the job and the company in which you work, please?
Hello Katie, thank you for inviting me. So my name's Emma. I'm the purchasing manager at a leading harness manufacturer in the UK. I started there 14 years ago. I actually started my life as sales, so it's a bit of a bonus for me to come into purchasing, to know both sides of sales and purchasing now. So I started with this company 14 years ago. I started as an expediter, moved to the buyer within the company. Then 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to get the promotion to the purchasing manager. Thank you. We purchase a range of components from tape all the way through to your cables, your huge housings and connectors for electric vehicles. Huge amount of different components, dealing with 300 different suppliers every year and probably dealing with 200 of them every month.
Crikey, sounds pretty busy.
Yeah.
So from the research I've done about yourself and your company, I believe that you have some quite complex supply chains, and I think you actually source some products from India, is that correct?
I do, yes, yeah. We do source from all over the world. Obviously, we've got the challenge of Brexit coming up, but to discuss India, obviously Brexit doesn't really affect that. I do purchase from South Korea, I purchase from India, I purchase from the States, Europe and China. But recently I've got more involved with the Indians, and I purchase individual components, as well as 2 years ago starting a joint venture of purchasing harnesses from them as well.
Right, so you're quite ingrained in working closely with them?
Yes.
So with that respect then, what for you are the really important elements of ensuring that the supply chain is successful and making sure you get the products where you want them, when you want them?
Do you know, the biggest thing, it maybe sounds quite unprofessional, but build a relationship. There's not anything better than building a relationship, whether that's in the UK or whether it's in Europe or India or the States or wherever. Build the relationship and take the time to take interest in the different cultures. Indians in particular are very, very proud of their country.
Okay, so relationship development is really important for you.
Personally, yeah, it's key, and to be fair, I think it's got me a long way.
Okay, and in building that relationship, do you find that communication tends to be easier? Does it flow easier? Is it more transparent when you've got a good relationship?
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Okay, and so that's the positive side. It's all about building good relationships, ensuring good communication. On the flip side, what do you think are the main challenges that you would face with managing a supply chain such as the one that you work with in India?
Definitely a language barrier.
Yeah.
It's obviously very hard. The time differences, by the time I get into work at 8:30, depending on the British time zones, it can be 12:30, 1:30 then. So by the time I get in, I've had my meetings with my team, I've got decided what I'm going to do, decided what shortages need to be dealt with or whatever. It can soon be 10:30. I've literally only got 1 or 2 hours working with the Indians then. So you've always got to try and make sure you deal with them as your first job of the day.
I understand. And when you speak with them, when you're in this country, in the UK, do you tend to use telephone or do you use Skype so you can see them? What's your preferred way of communicating with them?
I'm quite old-fashioned and I go telephone.
Okay, yeah. And that works? The relationship works well with the telephone? They're happy to chat on the telephone to you?
Yes, yeah, no problem at all. I prefer to do everything by email because you've got that understanding, but they do like that chat. I think they feel it's building their language confidence and things like that as well. So, but they prefer to chat, definitely. But I would always follow up a phone call with a summary email just to confirm what's being discussed as well.
Yeah, makes sense. I understand. And do you ever get the opportunity to go and actually visit the suppliers that you work with globally, or in India, for example?
Yeah, I visit India at least once a year. I should go twice a year, to be fair, because of the volume of work that I'm doing with them at this moment in time. It would definitely be easier to go twice a year. I was actually there 3 months ago, just before the lockdown that we're currently in.
Yeah.
But I got back and then it's all gone a little bit crazy. So I don't think I should be going again this year, but I was planning on going. Obviously, that was March, and I was going to go again in September, but due to restrictions, it's not going to happen this year now.
I see. And when you did go, and when you go in the future, what sort of things do you like to do with the suppliers when you're there? Do you have a plan of what you want to achieve with regards to trying to develop the supply chain and enhance it in any way?
Yeah, I always go over with an agenda. Personally, again, I'm maybe a little bit old-fashioned, and I like to plan and decide where the chat should go. It doesn't always work like that because they have their agendas as well. But the key thing is to obviously check the production lines, go over their quality procedures, go over their MRP systems and various different things like that to make sure I'm understanding how they're working so I can work alongside them.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm not suggesting that anything has ever gone wrong, but has there ever been a problem with the supply chains that you manage?
Many times. The world of purchasing, nothing's straightforward, is it? So there is particular problems. I mean, this particular supplier that I'm basing this chat on, they make harnesses for me, ones that either I can't make, or the volumes are so big due to the labour cost of India compared to the UK. Some of the harnesses that have been shipped over there, and the biggest problem or the biggest challenge I've had recently that's come to my mind is it was a new project for an electric vehicle that we're doing. It had a very strict start of production date, and the prototype build was going great until it got to the test stage, and it failed test quite considerably over in India.
Right.
Stripped everything down, went through the bombs, and they actually realised they'd missed off quite an important component in the middle of the harness of all places, which obviously is why it failed its test. The one thing India are quite, I won't say bad with, because that's not, they find it more challenging to get components quickly, would probably be the better way of saying it, whereas I can source components generally through excess stock distributors, various different people, rather quickly. India can't. They are always down to lead times. So I'm quite competitive, which I think is good in purchasing, because I want to get the best price at the best time and things like that. So they couldn't get this particular housing for 18 weeks.
Crikey.
I had probably 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that, to get it sorted, and the harness on its way to the UK for the start of production. So basically I spent 2 days calling competitors. You have to hold your head high sometimes and go to people that you don't really want to speak to. Various distributors around Europe, States, England, blah, 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 blah. And I actually found this component that India couldn't get for 18 weeks. One of my suppliers in Croatia, one of my competitors in Croatia. After lots of negotiating, they agreed to sell them to me. The part arrived to me next day by obviously putting on express couriers and various different things like that. Then the next challenge was India are huge with their festivals. They have so many festivals in a year, and their ports close for some of the big ones. And sod's law, this particular one, they had a big festival going and all the ports was closed. So one of the colleagues of in India was actually visiting a customer in Germany. So I actually got my sales guy on an aeroplane across to Germany to meet the Indian colleague to hand over 5 of these housings to then be returned across to India.
Wow.
It was full on. It was absolute chaos, but we got it done.
Definitely. That sounds hard work, but rewarding. And hopefully the end is a happy one and you managed to meet the lead time and get the prototype over in.
Yeah, it was all brilliant in the end. It was very stressful, honestly. There wasn't many hours left to go, but we got there. But personally, I wouldn't want that type of thing every week because I think I would have a massive breakdown. But I love a challenge like that.
But I think that's interesting as well, because that's showing both elements of the supply chain. So your main supplier has let you down in getting something to you, and you've almost had to go reverse in getting a component back to them in order for them to then help you. So it's showing both ways how the flow can happen in a supply chain to ensure that everyone meets their need.
Absolutely, yeah. And to be fair, the competitor that I bought the housings off, they actually said, "Oh, Emma, you couldn't help me out with something, could you?"
Brilliant. So again,
and I did.
So yeah, the relationship then again, like you said right at the beginning of this conversation, the fact that you've got those solid relationships with your suppliers and in some positions your competitors, actually helping you with your supply chain management.
Definitely. And again, relationship, it just all boils down to these relationships.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Emma. That's been really insightful, and certainly a different spin on supply chain management with some really insightful information with regards to your suppliers in India. So like I said at the beginning, I know you're very busy, and I know that myself and all the CIPS listeners will be very grateful for the time you've given up this morning to talk to us and provide this podcast. So thank you very much indeed, and yeah, really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.